How do we remove our conditioning or our ordinary habitual way of being? We do it by ceasing to identify with those things. Just being aware of whatever is present in our experience allows us to be purified from whatever is in our experience. And that's the paradox that I talk about all the time, is that to remove the habitual, to remove your conditioning, to remove your thoughts, to get free from disturbing emotions, to do all of these things doesn't mean to push any of it away. It means to be with it, to consciously and intentionally be with the moment as it is, not hoping it would be different because we're going to push all this stuff away. Once I get rid of my bad feelings and my habits, and then I can be in a spiritual state. No, it's just the opposite. And that's why it's so difficult for people up to a certain point. But once you get this, then it's not difficult anymore. Then it's just a very simple shift. Because when we accept and we're present with, and present with means present with whatever is really here in the moment, then there's a shift in identification. We are then the presence being with, as opposed to being the feeling or being the thought or being the habit or whatever it is. And then different kinds of choices arise that we wouldn't necessarily notice before. Because once we realize that there's an impulse or a habit or an experience or a thought, whatever it is, that's here and I'm the presence aware of it, then I can choose to follow it or I can choose not to follow it, but I'm not stuck in it. I'm not imprisoned by it anymore. And so it's wonderful to find these Hasidic teachings like that, but very often those teachings don't teach you how to do it, though. They tell you they tell you what's going on, but they don't tell you how to plug into it. That's what we do together, is we practice it. Okay, let's come back to our verse from the Parsha. Asuli mikdash, let them make for me a sanctuary, a mikdash. So this word mikdash comes from the root kuf dalet shin, which is the word kadosh, which means holy or sacred. The actual meaning is separate. It can also be set aside or set apart, distinguished, but not in the ordinary sense. In the case of a troubled relationship, the word separate connotes distance, disconnectedness, alienation, but kadosh is the opposite. In a Jewish wedding ceremony, we hear the words, At mikudeshet li, you are holy to me. The betrothed couple becomes separate because they are each other's most intimate and therefore separate from all other less intimate relationships. So the separateness of kadosh points not to something that is distant, but most central. It points not to alienation, but to the deepest connection. And of course, just to remind everybody, this root, Kuf Dalet Shin, is Kadosh. It's also Kiddush. It's also the Kaddish, all these different things. V'shachanti betocham, and I will dwell among them. The Mikdash is the place that the divine quality of Kadosh, that is specialness, intimacy, dwells and communes with the Israelites. As it says, Shachanti, I will dwell. And this root of Shachanti, Shin, Kaf, Nun, is also found in the other word for the sanctuary, which is Mishkan. It's just another word. It can be the Mikdash or the Mishkan, as well as the word for the divine presence itself, Shekhinah, which in the imagery and language of medieval Kabbalah becomes like the feminine presence of God. So you may know this, but just to make sure and just to clarify, we all know that the Bible is mostly a male image of God, the King, right, the Lord, and we also know historically that feminine images of the divine preceded Judaism. In thousands of years ago, there were lots of goddess images, and monotheistic Judaism replaced all the different images with this one God, but that one God is mostly pictured as male. In Kabbalah, the feminine image of the divine kind of resurfaces And it resurfaces in a way that doesn't compete with or try to replace the traditional, but rather tries to complement it. So in some ways, I think it was successful. Obviously not completely, but it's an interesting thing to see how historically the masculine tended to dominate for a portion of history, but the feminine was under the surface and it came out. And in the language of Kabbalah, it becomes more of a love story. Of course, Kabbalah didn't invent it. Even in the Song of Songs, in the Bible itself, we do have that feminine imagery. It's just not the most common imagery that we have. Okay, so that's the Shekhinah. And what's the main function of Shin Kaf Nun, Shochen, this communing with the sacred? So the Israelites in the Torah and in the Bible, they came to the Mishkan and later the temple in Jerusalem to heal their separation from the divine. This is separation in the ordinary sense of the word. They brought their fruit, their grain, and their animals to be offered on the fiery altar in order to heal the disconnectedness and alienation caused by their own transgressions. The word for sacrificial offering is korban, from the root kuf resh bet, which is also the word karov, which means close. Both close, like physically close, but it could also mean close in time, meaning soon. So this root doesn't mean sacrifice at all, actually. It means nearness, closeness, or intimacy. And where was the mikdash placed? Was it separate from the camp, off at a distance? No, it was at the very center of the camp. And within this very center of the Mikdash was the most holy, the Kadosh Kadoshim, the Holy of Holies. This most sacred space was the innermost room, the center of the center. This representation of the sacred in space and architecture is not mere ritual magic from the past. It is a pointer to the true sanctuary of presence within your own life. There can be only one center of your life, and that center is the one place that life is actually being lived. This moment. You are never really separate from this moment, and yet, are you truly dwelling within it? Is there that sense of shochen, of Shekhinah, dwelling within the space of this moment? Asuli mikdash v'shechanti betocham. Let them make for me a sanctuary, and I will dwell. Normally translated among them, but can also be translated as within them, betocham. There is a divine call. It calls to us equally in pain and joy, in excitement and in boredom. It says, come to the center. Build me a sanctuary. How do you build it? The essence of the sanctuary is not the structure, but the space within the structure. The structure is already there as your body, your mind, your heart. They become a sanctuary the moment you allow there to be a space. The space completes the structure. Come into that space. Come into your body. Come into this moment. Bring your korban to the altar. Is there pain? Is there fear? Is there regret? Is there embarrassment? Bring it all. Let the fire upon the altar of the present moment burn away the separation. If it hurts, okay, let it hurt a little. The pain is temporary, and it gives way to the sacred. Because from within the space of allowing yourself to feel whatever needs to be felt, there is transmutation. The energy of separation and pain becomes the energy of love. And from this love, there's the possibility of external healing as well, the healing that happens between people through deeds of love. The sages taught that it is for the sake of love that the universe has come into being. And when we do acts of chesed, loving kindness towards one another, we make the world itself into a sanctuary, into a home for the divine. This is our tremendous potential to uncover this fundamental quality of sacredness, first within ourselves through presence, and second toward others through words and deeds. And this is the path of kuf, sanctification.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu L'shalom L'shalom